Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Community Information Forum. I'm Dr. Matthew Beck, Superintendent of Schools. Thank you for joining us to learn more about the September 16th bond referendum. Let's give everyone another minute to join. Okay, we are excited to spend this evening sharing information about the referendum. With just about a month until the vote, the district wants to ensure the community is informed about the projects and answer your questions. Tonight's forum will last about an hour. We will begin with a 30-minute presentation from our panelists, leaving plenty of time for questions. If anyone could not join the forum tonight, the district will also host an in-person forum and building tour of Alpine School on September 9th. You can find more information about that on our referendum website. I'd first like to introduce to you our panelists from the district. With us tonight, we have Barbara Decker, our Business Administrator and Board Secretary, Caitlin Gagnon, our Board of Education President, Lauren Collier, a board member and Sparta alumni, and Katie Madsen, Principal of Alpine School. In addition, joining us is the district's architect who helped us determine the priorities for this proposal. His name is Alan Barnett. Our financial advisor, Sherry Tracy, is here, and our bond counsel, Amy Baumgartel. Before we hear from the panelists, I would like to go over how you can ask questions. Please type questions in the Q&A function. Your questions will be directed to the appropriate panelist. We'll get to as many questions as possible before ending around 7:30. It is important to note that this session is being recorded and will be posted on our bond referendum website, sparta.org/vote, for anyone unable to join tonight or who wants to rewatch it later. The site is also an excellent source to learn about the September 16th vote. It includes frequently asked questions, as well as a short video to summarize how the proposal benefits Sparta schools and residents. Let's get started. To kick off this evening's presentation, I would like to introduce Board of Education President Caitlin Gagnon, who will tell us more about why we decided to pursue a referendum. Ms. Gagnon.
Thank you so much, Dr. Beck. So welcome to all. On behalf of the Board of Education, I would like to express our sincere gratitude to everyone who's joining us tonight. I think the attendance of everyone present really speaks volumes to our shared commitment to both our district and the students we proudly serve. So, like many residents, when my husband and I were first on the hunt for our home, we were instantly drawn to the strong sense of community and the quality of the public school system here in Sparta. We moved to the Alpine section of Sparta back in 2017, and our two children have attended Sparta School since kindergarten. Our youngest is now preparing to enter Mohawk Avenue School, while our oldest is beginning his middle school journey. So the question on the slide before us is, why now? In simple terms, I think this solution has been long awaited by our community. So I'd like to personally thank Dr. Beck, our architect Alan, Ms. Decker, our business administrator, my fellow members of the Board of Education, the members of our referendum community committee, and of course, everyone else who helped lead us to this point in time. So some information, the board really developed the referendum process through our strategic planning. We had several goals in mind throughout. And of those goals include continuing to prepare our students for the future, fostering student achievement by providing equitable, safe, and comfortable learning environments for all Sparta students, no matter their age or grade, ensuring the needs of our teachers and staff are being provided for, and address the large scope of facility repairs that our annual operational budget simply cannot accommodate. And we'll get into the details of the benefits of the referendum on the next slide. So exploring bond funding. Very important to understand, New Jersey school districts hold bond referenda to access a specific type of state aid and to spread large project costs over time, which is very similar to how a homeowner may borrow money for major home repairs. That said, the board can only capitalize on these opportunities through constituent consent. So as a board, we carefully considered how a referendum for Sparta would fund district-wide system and facility upgrades, expand our learning spaces to help reduce the pressure on our current facilities, particularly at Alpine School, bring $16.9 million in state aid to Sparta, And while a comprehensive breakdown will be covered on that on a future slide, I really can't stress enough how important it is to understand that is a substantial amount of aid, and taking advantage of it will ultimately lessen the tax burden for Sparta taxpayers. And of course, lastly, strategically aligning this referendum process with the final debt payments from a previous referendum. The board understands, as we've said before, this is a very big ask for our community, but we also know that our students and staff deserve modern, functioning learning spaces that support our excellent educational offerings and uphold the tremendous value that Sparta schools have to offer our township. Ultimately, the decision is in your hands, and we hope this and future sessions will help you make an informed decision in September.
Thank you, Caitlin. It certainly was a decision that the board and district carefully weighed. Next up, I'd like to introduce Alan Barnett, our district's architect. He'll give us an overview of the projects included in the referendum.
Thank you, Dr. Beck, and good evening. On September 16th, voters will consider a one ballot question that'll include must-do projects for the district and get all of Sparta schools up to the same level. Quickly going over the list of projects at each of the buildings. Alpine School will have classroom HVAC upgrades throughout, electrical service upgrade for that HVAC improvements, roof replacement, window replacement, interior door replacement, a boiler replacement, as well as climate control upgrades. Mohawk Avenue School will receive rooftop air handling equipment replacements, classroom HVAC upgrades throughout, electrical service upgrades to support the classroom HVAC, door and window replacements. Helen Morgan is scheduled to receive rooftop air handling equipment replacement, again, classroom HVAC and electrical service upgrades, roof replacement, window replacement, boiler replacement, and again, climate control upgrades. The middle school rooftop HVAC unit replacements, classroom HVAC throughout. And at the high school, 3 science classrooms will be renovated, classroom HVAC will be upgraded, and a chiller replacement will occur. This bond projects, such as roofs, windows, and doors, will allow the district to keep funds in the annual operating budget focused primarily on educational programming.
Thank you, Alan. The science lab renovations at the high school are exciting. The new labs would create modern, collaborative learning spaces for our STEM Academy students. Our STEM Academy is a point of pride at the high school. Right now, students use the science labs that are outdated with much of the same equipment and fixtures from when they were built. They do not support the current innovative curriculum. If the referendum passes, the labs would get new room finishes, allowing students to learn in quality environments and with the latest science education standards. Alpine School would also see updates that would improve educational spaces. Unlike Helen Morgan and Mohawk Avenue, Alpine does not have a dedicated classroom for special programs like art, music, Spanish, and computer science. Those courses are taught from a cart. Mr. Barnett, can you please tell us about the Alpine School edition?
Gladly. Part of the referendum includes a substantial addition to the Alpine School. And as Dr. Beck stated, 2 of the current classrooms will be renovated for special programming. So when we say special programming, that's taking art and music that's currently taught on carts and circulated around the building, giving them their actual dedicated classrooms. But the addition is a 46,625 square foot addition to be located on the back of the property, and it'll address the space crunches and eliminate the trailers' use as classrooms. The modular class trailers that are currently on site will still remain, but they'll be repurposed for other things such as offices. Inside the addition, there's going to be 10 classrooms on the first floor for kindergarten, 10 classrooms that are currently designated for 2nd grade, a high school sized gymnasium. Now the gymnasium is going to have two benefits. One for Alpine to be used during the day, and the second is going to be designed in a manner that it can be used for community resource off hours and weekends. There's going to be a new bus drop-off area, new parking lot and driveway work, and as I said, the 2 classrooms will be in the existing building will be renovated for art, music, Spanish, and computer science. This is a quick view of what the building will look like from the entrance. This is the two-story classroom addition. So this would be seen from the bus drop-off and parking lot area. And then this is the other side of the building addition where we will have the new high school size gymnasium with its own parking, again, that can be used off hours as a community resource. Quick image of what the addition corridor will look like, showing color, lighting, graphics that will be incorporated into the design.
Okay. Thank you, Alan. The addition at Alpine would be roughly 80% of the size of a football field. Our Alpine School principal, Katie Madsen, is here to share some of the ways Alpine has already creatively used space.
Hi, everyone. I'm extremely happy to be here. I am Katie Madsen, the principal at Alpine. As it was previously mentioned, every available space is currently being used as a classroom or an office. We've made the stage into office spaces, and we've placed all of our specials, including art, music, Spanish, and computer science, on carts. We are running out of options for adequate instructional spaces for our students. It affects our ability to provide space for small group instruction, testing accommodations, and specialized programming. The addition would mean students would no longer use the trailers for classrooms. Currently, classes in the trailers need to travel outside, regardless of the weather, to visit the main office, the nurse, to eat lunch, and to attend gym. With the new addition and the proposed bus lane, I think one of the most exciting things is offering a new flow of traffic. Currently, when we do pick up at the end of the day, if we see a bus, we have to stop the cars from coming in to get the buses into the back so we can dismiss our students, which then causes quite a bit of traffic on that main road. So that new bus lane would allow for the buses to move in, the parents to still come in to pick up their students and not have as much congestion. The students and the staff deserve the functional and dedicated learning spaces that this referendum proposes.
Thank you, Ms. Madsen. Now seems like a good opportunity to discuss a misconception we've heard concerning the plan for the preschool program. We received the question, is the referendum just making more space for additional preschool classrooms at Alpine? I can answer that one. If voters passed the referendum, the number of preschool classrooms at Alpine would not increase. The Alpine addition would create more space for our current pre-K through second grade population and eliminate the need to use trailers as classrooms. The district would continue to partner with community preschools to provide services for the expanded preschool program, as we have done over the past couple of years. Alan, can you share what we found when we looked at the capacity of our schools? That's an important factor when we are pursuing an addition at Alpine.
Yes, the district, my office, and the State Department of Education thoroughly analyzed the capacity of each of Sparta schools with this proposal. We found that should enrollment increase, all Sparta schools have the capacity to handle the increase of students besides Alpine.
Thank you. Even with the temporary trailers, Alpine is already at capacity. I'd like to bring Alpine School Principal Katie Madsen back to share more about what the space crunch looks like for Alpine teachers and students.
Our current all-purpose room serves as a gymnasium, our cafeteria, and where we house assemblies. So when we are planning with our PTO to have a special guest speaker come in, there are a ton of constraints on when those presentations can happen. In addition, because of the HVAC and the temperatures within the building, we often run a heat wave schedule, and we disperse our students among different classrooms that might have AC to kind of cool them off and allow for better conditions and environments that you can learn and be as successful as possible in.
Thank you, Ms. Madsen. These projects are certainly exciting and would transform Alpine School. Now I'd like to invite our business administrator and board secretary, Barbara Decker, to talk about regular maintenance across the district.
Hi, everybody. Our district maintenance department and custodial staff does an excellent job maintaining our buildings both inside and out on a regular schedule. However, the operating budget or the general fund budget can't really handle all of the expenses that would be coming through from time to time. especially when those large ticket items come through, like HVAC upgrades, a chiller, or even any kind of replacements, large ticket at the multiple buildings. State aid can pay for a significant portion of this work, which would really alleviate a lot of the strain on the district. The operating budget is for educational needs, and the state aid could really kick in and help us. If voters don't approve this referendum, we would still need to complete all of those projects on an ongoing basis without the advantage of that state aid. That would mean updates would take much longer to earmark that local money to pay for those full costs. The bond referendum gives us a chance to have state aid cover a portion of those costs instead of paying the full price, and spread those costs over time. Back to you, Dr. Beck.
Thank you, Barbara. State aid is an important part of why the district and board decided to pursue the September 16th referendum. We know that Sparta residents also have to consider the financial impact of the referendum. Here tonight, we have our district's financial advisor, Sherry Tracy, to tell us more.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. We've talked a lot about state aid so far, and that is because it really is a key component of this referendum and of these projects. The district, as was stated, is been able to secure $16.9 million from the state for these projects, of the total 82.3. And you can really think about it like 20%. It's a little more than 20. It's like 20.5% that the state is paying for the total projects. That's on principal and interest. So as Ms. Decker explained, it's really a key component and crucial, because it allows the state to pay about 1/5 of our costs and allow these projects to get done all together, and instead of having to be done one at a time and paid in full by the taxpayers of Sparta. Another key component I wanted to talk about, we've talked a little about the net impact for the tax impact of this project. And the way that works is the board and the administration has been very careful in the planning of this referendum to coincide with debt that is going to be paid off. Way back in 1996, the school district did a referendum for the new middle school, issued 30-year bonds. That last bond payment is September of 2026. So the 26-27 school year is the final payment on the middle school. Because of that, debt is dropping off, and it's roughly about $700,000 per year that's going to come off with that bond issue, allowing new debt to be added and for taxpayers to not feel the full brunt of the costs. That net impact is about $28 per month on the average home. And that's the average home assessment. The average home assessment in Sparta is $372,229. Very important to understand the difference between assessed and market value. Assessed value is not your market value. It's not what you would sell your home for. The slide that's up here now shows just 2 properties and kind of shows the difference between market value and assessed value for these 2 properties. If you need help finding out what and taxes are based on the assessed value. So these numbers we're talking about are based on your assessment. If you need help finding out your assessed value, the website is listed there. It's also going to be available on the referendum website to be able to put in your address, determine what your assessed value is, and then also your tax impact. In addition, the website will also have some information on the senior tax freeze. So for eligible senior citizens and people with disabilities who may qualify to have their taxes either frozen or reimbursed, that information will be available as well. I should just lastly also mention too, the numbers I talked about, the $28 per month is based on a 30-year bond, just like the last 2 issues for the middle school and the high school have all been 30-year bonds at a rate of 4.35%, which is right about where we are in the market today.
Thank you, Sherry. That is excellent information. Amy Baumgartel, our bond counsel, will elaborate on why a referendum is a good option.
Sure. So normally a school district will issue bonds when it needs to fund large capital projects. However, a district cannot legally issue bonds unless it first has voter approval to do so. So there's many benefits to funding these projects through a bond referendum. As we discussed, it allows you to finance the projects over a longer period of time. In this case, it'll be over 30 years, instead of paying for everything at once. And perhaps the most significant benefit is that state aid. So a successful referendum allows a school district to access 16.9 million in state aid, which helps offset the cost of the projects and reduce the impact on taxpayers. So where does this state aid come from and how can the district receive it? The state collects taxes from all New Jersey residents to help fund school improvements. A portion of that money can come back into the school district in the form of debt service aid if the district has a successful referendum and issues bonds to fund the projects. So what this means is with voter approval, the school district can issue bonds, and over the life of the bonds, the state will pay its portion of the debt service, therefore bringing $16.9 million of state aid back into the school district. Next, I'd like to discuss something that you might see in the bond question that can sometimes be confusing. So by law, there's certain information we're required to put in the question, such as a description of the project, the total cost of the project, the not to exceed principal amount of the bonds. We have to put the eligible cost, which is determined by the Department of Education and is the project cost that the state has deemed eligible to receive state aid on. We also have to put the district aid percentage, and this is where it can get confusing. The district aid percentage is part of a statutory formula used to determine how much aid the district will receive based on the eligible cost. In this case, the school district's aid is 40%, and we are legally required to put 40% in the question. However, the state has been underfunding this for 10 plus years by approximately 15%. So although you'll see 40% on the question, we just want to clarify that the school district will actually receive a little less in state aid than that due to the state underfunding. However, the 16.9 million state aid that we've been discussing tonight takes into account that reduction. So assuming the referendum is successful, the district will move to sell the bonds through a competitive bidding process, and this help ensures the district gets the best deal it can at the time. And it's also important to note that the district is not permitted to spend any more money than is authorized through the bond referendum, and the bond proceeds have to be spent on the approved projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. The presentation portion of the evening is now ending. Thank you to all of our panelists for your thoughtful explanations. Now is the time for you to submit your questions. Please feel free to enter all questions into the Q&A function on Zoom. I will direct them to the appropriate panelist for a response, and we will do our best to get to as many questions as we can. Please also remember that we are recording this forum. A recording will be added to sparta.org/vote later this week. And it looks like we have questions coming in. And we'll start with our architect. It looks like we have several questions for our architect, and most are about Alpine School. Mr. Barnett, I'll read the first one and give you time to answer, then I'll do that with the other questions. Will this renovation include room for pre-K for all at Alpine?
The number of preschool classrooms at Alpine will not increase if the voters pass the referendum. The district will continue to use community partners for preschool, and the addition will create space for current kindergarten through the second grade students.
Absolutely. Okay. Will this remodel to Alpine include air conditioning in all of the rooms? If not, why not?
Oh, sorry, jumped the gun. Yes, it will.
Okay. Will the pods at Alpine be removed and replaced with actual build rooms that are part of the school?
No, the pods will remain, but they're just going to be repurposed for offices and storage for the district.
That would be the trailers are going to be repurposed. The pods.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
Sorry,
That's okay.
different districts call trailers different things. Sorry. No,
Yeah, the pods that are going to be refurbished for classroom use.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, those pods will be repurposed, and there will be some construction on some of the pods rooms to make them better classrooms for our special
Yes, for the specials, for the art, the music, the computer science, and the Spanish, I believe.
Yeah, yep. How long is the addition at Alpine anticipated to take? How long will it take?
So should the voters approve the referendum on September 16th, the construction will begin roughly around the summer of 26, and it will be completed during the summer of 28, ready for school September of 28.
What will recess and the playground look like during construction?
Now that's a tricky one because there will be a lot going on the site during the course of construction. There's a lot more players that will be involved come September 17th. The CM will be more actively involved. We'll work out the logistics with the CM and ourselves, but ultimately it comes down to working that out with the general contractor that's selected. Now, we have some ideas at this point, but until the project moves further along, we can't lock into one's particular choice as to how recess will function.
Thank you. The bottom line is the recess and playground, recess play will still take place moving forward. With the logistics.
Yes,
will be-
yes, that's correct.
And similarly, how will construction be conducted to avoid disruption to students?
Well, we're going to do our best to minimize disruption. You know, it is going to be a construction site. It's going to be a big construction site on the back of the property. So we'll do our best to control and minimize the disruption to the students. When we try that, we do that by having a lot of the earth moving work and some of the larger scope occur during the first summer. So the footings, foundations, some of the steel, that happens early on in the project, so that again, it minimizes the construction, or excuse me, the disruption. Construction fences will go up to make sure that the site is maintained safe for the students. We'll orchestrate the delivery of materials again so that it minimizes that disruption through the course of the day of the students. But it is going to be a construction site. It will be noisy at times. And unfortunately, kids tend to like it. There's going to be a lot going on. There's going to be, a lot of guys moving earth, moving cranes, bringing steel. So there's going to be things for the kids to enjoy.
And just to reiterate, the actual addition is going to take place in the back of the building, so that construction for the addition is not going to affect the interior of the building while that is going on. And then the rest of the renovations that go on would take place, obviously, well-timed during summer and breaks. Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct. So we put in the schedule that the contractor will not come into the building unless the district says it's okay to do so during the school year. Anything that happens inside or make the connection to the existing building happens during the summer months.
Yeah.
Again, to minimize that disruption.
Right. Thank you, Alan. Ms. Decker, this question's for you. It's already been touched on throughout the evening, but just to reiterate, how much per year will this increase our school taxes?
So on the average assessed value, as you mentioned, we talked about this before, we're looking at about $336 per year on the average assessed value at home. Remember, that's just a debt service increase. That's not on our regular general fund tax levy. It's definitely debt service because it's the project related.
Thank you. The next one I can answer as superintendent. How will these renovations improve our district's special services so that we do not have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars placing numerous students in out-of-district schooling because we cannot meet their needs? That's a very good question. It's a very good question, aside from the referendum, right? The referendum would allow us to increase and give better learning environments to our small group instruction classrooms. And specialized classrooms are frequently explored in our district. We have added specialized classrooms within the past 2 years, actually. And the referendum would allow us flexibility and further exploration of of programs that we can add. Right now, if we wanted to add a program at Alpine School, a specialized special ed program, our options are very limited to the point that we run into a lot of barriers, and it's very tough to make that happen. But with a referendum and with an addition, there would be a little more flexibility with the use of our spaces, and we could continue to look at specialized programs to keep our special education students in district where they receive a better education, and of course in their hometown do better socially with their friends as well. Ms. Decker, I'll direct the next couple of questions to you, but I might chime in, and Ms. Gagnon, Ms. Collier, you might want to chime in as well. Why weren't any upgrades or changes to our school buildings and any other improvements included in the already increased tax bill we received that included a 2% increase?
So that is correct. The tax bill did increase by 2%, which is what we're allowed to statutorily increase every year, the tax levy. And it's difficult to balance a budget in today's world. We have many constraints on those funds with only a 2% of that tax levy increase. That would be our insurance, both health and also general liability. And then you're trying to incorporate some small projects every year into the budget itself through capital projects. But a lot of the projects that we're talking about in the referendum are extremely expensive, and it would take a long time for us to accumulate and save that type of money to even complete one of those projects, let alone all the projects that we're hoping to if the referendum were to pass. So it's just very expensive. And that 2% tax levy increase that you do receive every year is really just helping us cover and maintaining the costs of running the district from day-to-day operations.
Yeah, and just
I'm sorry, go ahead, Caitlin.
Oh, thank you, Lauren. Sorry about that. I was going to say, to chime in on that too, I think it's important to understand the real function of the operational budget. You know, so much of that percentile really goes to things like programming and salaries and staff. So ultimately, at the end of the day, there's very little left to work with in terms of financing major upgrades. On a personal level, I can say that over the last several years of being on the board, Ms. Decker is kind enough to let all board members venture into her office. We comb through the budget as carefully as possible, every single line, and see where there's opportunities. And thankfully, in many of those cases, we've been able to come out of that meeting and end up in finance and allocate funds for certain upgrades and certain improvements that we've needed and we've seen and implemented. However, as Ms. Decker just explained, so many of these, there's a long list, and unfortunately, so many of them are large ticket items that to accommodate that with our operational budget would be virtually impossible.
Well said, Ms. Decker and Caitlin. I think one of the things too, over my time being on the board, that we've seen is just, we have seen double-digit increases in many areas that are outside of our control, similar to what we see in our own homes. And then the district is really constantly investing in ways that we can mitigate costs, such as our solar project, being part of energy efficient programs, combing through the budget, being part of grant exploration. And we truly value the generosity also of our town through benevolent organizations as well. But when we look at the opportunity that we have here, we do have some aging infrastructure, and just similar to your home, these are projects that we just cannot do without large funds. And every year we do allocate repairs, things of that nature, to go as far as we can with your dollars every year.
And the next question is along those lines, so there might be some overlap or some repeating of some of the statements, but what is the Board of Education doing to balance education, building needs, and taxes when taxes are already high in Sparta, and what are the alternatives?
I'm happy to take a stab at this. I think we covered a good chunk of this in the last answer, but I would say ensuring that we are not enduring cuts to programming and staff, I think, is paramount to this board. That's number one. Education comes first for us. That is, at the end of the day, what empowers our public school system. So ensuring that those programs and teachers and staff have all they need. But when it comes to building needs, as Lauren just said very well, at the end of the day, we're dealing with very dated facilities in many cases, and we're dealing with upgrades that have been long overdue. So it is a tricky balance, but knowing the work that we all come together to do, especially with Ms. Decker at the helm, I'm very comfortable with where we're at. And I'm grateful that we have a solution in front of us that will help us offset some of those costs with the capitalization of state aid.
Absolutely. And to piggyback on that, I think one of the things that we looked at since we started looking at the referendum project, probably really going back to 2022 is, do we build a brand new school? Do we find land? Do we look into those options? And those all would have greatly added to this cost of the building. And at the time, we had no idea what inflation would look like, what the cost would look like on the average homeowner and resident in Sparta. And now I can really confidently say, as a board member and as a fellow taxpayer, I'm so thankful that we have the opportunity to potentially go build on to Alpine rather than building something brand new, and taking advantage of the roofs, the windows, the doors projects really helps us capitalize on getting that above that 20% mark as well. And Sherry, I don't know if you would be willing to comment too on the idea of taking advantage of the bond market and interest rates. I know we can't speculate that far out, but that's something where we talked about ways that we could also give back to the debt service aid as a board and to help our taxpayers.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. And we did discuss that and look at that based on the timing of the referendum and where interest rates are currently. We are starting to see some short-term interest rates decline, but they're still at a level where the district would be able to take the bond proceeds, once the bond proceeds are sold, invest those proceeds, currently somewhere right around 3.5% to 4% interest rate, and earn that money, because obviously all $82 million isn't going to be spent on day one. So the district would have the ability to earn potentially 3% to 4%, depending on where interest rates are towards the end of the year. And what happens at these next couple Fed meetings, and to see then any of the interest earnings made from the construction funds, from those referendum funds, can be used and budgeted towards debt service. So that's something I know the board and the administration want to do and plan to do with those interest funds. So the numbers we're talking about today are hopefully high end, and that once we have, at least for those first several years, and it's also important, I talked a little bit about when the middle school bonds were coming off, but the high school is right around the corner too. That one is 2036. So there's only 10 years left on that. I think the numbers we were talking about today, with $28 a month on the average home, it's really kind of that increase for a 10-year period. Although it's for 30 years, within 10 years, we're actually going to be below the current level for debt service because of the bonds being paid off. So if we can use some interest earnings for those first 3-4 years, we can help to lower that initial impact for those few years. And that's another point as to why the timing is right for now.
Thank you, Sherry.
Sure.
Thank you, Lauren, too. That was great. I would also say, too, just to add to the second portion of the question, which was what are the alternatives? This was a huge question I had come into the board asking, have we explored every option available? Have we thought outside the box? And again, confidently can say every single avenue has been explored by this board and this administration. Partnerships with the township to look at land and property that might be available to us. Ways to either redistrict or reconsider different purposes for various buildings. There was no stone left unturned in this process. And thankfully, I would say, we're all in consensus that I think this ended up being the right solution for our district. So we're very excited. But in terms of alternatives, yes, we can absolutely assure everyone it was a tireless and painstaking process that preceded my tenure on the board for sure. So for those efforts, I'm certainly grateful, and to be part of the solution that as well. So.
And just
Thank you. I'll just close up on that. And I agree. And thank you, everybody, for those comments as well. It's very difficult trying to balance a budget with all of the fixed costs that we're faced with. And then knowing that you have capital projects that are in the millions and 5 buildings with needs, they're aging buildings on top of that. It's almost impossible to be able to put any kind of capital project in your general fund budget when you're going through that budget process every year. The funds are just not available when you're talking about whether it's a roof replacement, chillers, air conditioning units, even paving or anything like that. They're all large ticket items, and certainly not a construction to improve the size of an existing building. So unfortunately, the dollars are just not there when we incorporate everything line by line in those budgets and determine what we can afford and what we can't afford.
And I just wanted to expand on what Caitlin just spoke about. She actually took a lot of what I was going to say about the alternatives. When I started in this district back in 2021, one of the biggest challenges I was faced with, and one of the challenges that were one of the most concerns that was repeated the most was the overcrowding at Alpine School. So from the time that I started through the time that the decision was made that this was our best option, the administrative team and the Board of Education met multiple times. The administrative team, all 25 of us, sat down and brainstormed what are some solutions to the overcrowding at Alpine. And Caitlin said it before. We looked at redistricting, moving grades around. We looked back at community schools and what that looked like. And all the options were put out there, and a pros and cons list was made for each of those options. I believe there's about 10 of them. And we did a deep dive as an administration into each of those options. And the cons outweighed the pros for all of those options, except for the idea of possibly building a new school, which the major con there would have been the cost. And then this is how we arrived at this decision. So just to reiterate what Caitlin said, this was not taken lightly, and there has been a lot of discussion and a lot of options that we looked at. That this was the best option, or is the best option. This is a tough question, and we're not shying away from tough questions. I'm going to ask Ms. Gagnon and Ms. Collier to respond. Why are taxes going up? Someone visited my house, and I read in the papers that if I voted for certain people, my taxes would not go up.
So Lauren, you're off the hook for this one. This is actually a great question. I'll be happy to answer it. So I ran on the first campaign of Stop Raising Taxes in 2023. This slogan was formed on the heels of a 5.8% tax increase that related exclusively to the annual operational budget that we were just speaking to. So really classroom oriented. At the time, as a constituent, I was very concerned that raising taxes, the average was about $21 a month or $258 per year for the average assessed home at that time. The idea of raising taxes so significantly without a significant upgrade to show for those taxes was concerning to me. And one of the many reasons why I ran for the Board of Education. No taxation without representation would have been really nice, but unfortunately the county enforces a very strict 3-word maximum for slogans. So a little bit limited there. Thankfully, I will say, since being elected and in partnership with not just the board, but with Ms. Decker, we have been able to successfully keep our annual operational budget tax increase at the standard state recommended levy rate of about 2%, which is great, and has certainly come down from that 5.8% that we saw. We're confident with where we're at and where we're trending, and we'll keep hopefully trending in the right direction. The referendum was an absolutely huge part of conversation, or a point of conversation during my campaign season. Again, that was a few years ago now. On a personal level, I have advocated for and supported the referendum long before my tenure on the board or the vision of it. But one thing I would like to say, I would just like to actually highlight an article from last year's candidates who I believe are tuning in, but are not considered panelists, so can't chime in verbally. But this was actually a statement featured on Tap Into Sparta back in September of 2024. And for anyone that's interested in looking it up, it's called Stop Raising Taxes, Talk the Referendum. So actually speaking directly to the referendum. Stop Raising Taxes recognizes that there are times that the needs of the school district outweigh what can be planned into an annual budget. This has become abundantly clear by the desperate infrastructure needs of Alpine School. Stop Raising Taxes believes that no major increase in expenses or taxation should take place without the consent of constituents. While we individually support the referendum, we value the direct input from the Sparta community, knowing it is the responsibility of the community alone to determine whether any additional tax increases are necessary to address our district's issues. And I think that really does a great job of summarizing what I've said, which is individually where we all stand is very separate from what we were speaking to when we were looking at a significant hike for an annual operational budget. So hopefully that clarifies that. And I'd be happy to follow up and knock on someone's door to reiterate, because again, in hearing that this was something that wasn't said, I'm surprised, because it was a huge talking point for my campaign season, and I'm sure for the other candidates as well.
Thank you, Caitlin. Just a time check here. It's 7:16 I have. We're going to keep answering questions until about 7:30. And we thank the 30 or so residents who took time this evening to listen to our panelists and to send questions. There's still a list of questions with about 15 minutes to go, panelists. So let's try to keep the answers relatively brief, but make sure we answer the questions thoroughly, just to keep moving here. So another question for Mr. Barnett. What is the benefit of completing HVAC upgrades through the referendum?
Okay, by doing the HVAC upgrades as well as the other facility improvement projects, these are as Mrs. Decker stated, these are larger ticket items, and it's very difficult to project out costs for larger ticket items that span multiple years. So by including them in the referendum, one, you get the projects wrapped up all together at the same time for each of the schools, but also you get that state aid on them. Facility improvement projects get a larger percentage of the state aid than the school addition project, and that's based on formulas that are driven by the New Jersey Department of Education. So that's why we look to do the HVAC, the roofs, the doors, the windows, all inclusive in this bond referendum at one time.
Thank you, Alan. Amy, this one's for you, I believe. Can the bond be paid only by families that send students to the schools?
So the short answer to that is no. Just as school taxes are spread out amongst all residents in Sparta, the taxes to pay back the bonds will be the same way. There's really no mechanism in place to only have families using the school pay off the debt. And it's also important to remember that these costs are going to be spread out over the life of the bonds, and that will be 30 years.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Ms. Tracy, there's a couple that look like they might be for you. I'll ask one, let you answer, and I'll ask the next. What are the repayment terms and interest rate assumptions?
So the assumption used for the numbers we're talking about this evening is the 30-year bond, and at a rate of 4.35%.
Okay. What will the total repayment amount be, including interest?
Based on those assumptions, a 30-year bond for at a rate of 4.35%, when we net out the state aid, total principal and interest repayment is about $112 million. So that's principal plus interest minus the 20% or so for debt service aid, would be about $112 million total. And then of course any interest earnings, as we spoke about earlier, would be deducted from that as well.
Okay, I hope I'm reading and understanding this one properly. What is the difference in monthly payments between the bond being paid off and the new bond? Is $28 the difference?
Yes, so that would be the increase. And again, that's really for about 10 years where we still have the high school bond in there. When the middle school is paid off, the monthly increase is about $28. And then after the 10 years, it actually drops below what residents are currently paying now.
Okay, thank you. Back to you, Alan, for a couple. Will all contracts and spending be publicly accessible online?
It's hard to say if they'll be accessible online, but they will be available for review at the Board of Ed office.
Okay, thank you. These are excellent questions, by the way, for those that are asking them. Will there be a project labor agreement on this project, Alan?
That's a discussion that we'll have with the Board of Education and the construction manager as to what collectively we recommend to go. I've seen projects of this magnitude go in both directions, with and without a PLA.
Okay. And then will there be background checks required for the construction workers on site?
Yes.
Very good.
I want to thank whoever wrote that in, because that was something Alan was able to answer for us early on as a board. So thank you. Yes.
Okay. Here's one that I can answer that I believe that, and then we touched on earlier. Given the rate of growth in Sparta, is there a chance that we will outgrow the Alpine School, even if the addition is built before the bond is paid off? right now with the projections that we have, and the projections that we have are a 5-year projection. That's all that the demographic study would do. That's all the demographic study would allow. Based on those projections, we are confident that Alpine School would be able to, with this addition, be able to be more comfortable and absorb any kind of increase that comes through Alpine School. And as we mentioned before, the capacity of the other buildings right now, the enrollment is under capacity at each of the buildings. So any bubble that moves through from Alpine School into the other buildings, we're confident that we can absorb in those buildings. And again, this is based off the projections of the demographic study, which goes 5 years out.
Dr. Beck, if I could add to that, it's not just based on the demographic study that projects out 5 years. That's all the State Department of Education will allow as well. Anything further than 5 years, the student has not been born yet, so there's no way to justify the growth in enrollment.
Thank you, Alan. Absolutely. Another one that I can take: would the trailers that are currently at Alpine School be removed if the referendum passes? The plan for those trailers is to not use them as classrooms anymore, but rather use them as much needed office space and much needed storage space on Alpine's campus. Even though they are trailers and they were meant there to be there temporarily, the actual condition of the trailers is really good. Over the years, our district and our Board of Education has invested a decent amount of money in those trailers to bring them up to speed, to make them look and feel like actual classrooms with air conditioning and laminate flooring and furniture and all that. So the trailers will no longer be classrooms, but they would stay on campus and be repurposed because they are actually in good condition. What research has been done that supports the need for a high school sized gym? Maybe Alan, you could jump on too with this, but I would just say, if we are going to build a gym on Alpine's campus, the difference between a middle school gym, financially, the difference between a middle school gym and a high school sized gym, I would say the benefits would outweigh the cost, in that, as Alan mentioned before, it has great benefits during the school day, of course, but after the school day and on the weekends, the community use, the options for community use in that space would only increase if we just bump the size up from a middle school gym, which would have been the gym, to a high school size gym. I think the benefits would outweigh the costs on that one.
Yeah, plus this gives the community and the district greater flexibility in utilizing the space by the additional square footage.
One other thing I'd like to add to that, because I wouldn't say hesitant, but I was curious at the beginning of this myself when it came to the gym. And now I would say I'm a huge, huge supporter of it and very excited. As a mother, I know that we are all constantly looking for ways to get our children more involved in the community and providing them with safe spaces where they can thrive after school and enjoy their time. So allowing for not just a communal and a recreational opportunity for our children and our students, but also an opportunity for Sparta taxpayers to also see some value in the referendum and reap the rewards of this process as well. There's obviously opportunities for potential partnerships with the rec department. This expands our opportunities quite a bit. So we're excited about that. But again, we assess that as a potential opportunity for expanding the reach of the referendum to those who will be investing in it. So that's a very exciting development for us that we're proud of.
Thank you, Caitlin. Next few questions look like they might be from Ms. Decker. I'll read them all at once because they are kind of related or connected. How come the items in this project have not been addressed over time compared to being replaced all at once? Have 2 boilers and a chiller failed at once? And Mr. Barnett can help answer this one. Has any cost analysis been completed to compare repairing a lot of the HVAC facility items over replacing them? So why have they not been addressed over time? And because now we're doing it all at once. And did the 2 boilers and chillers, in fact, fail at once? We'll start with that.
So we always try to include some capital projects in the budgeting process. And we also have a long-range facility plan that outlines all of the projects that would be on the horizon for the district in all 5 buildings. And we use that to drive us and help us determine what needs to be replaced first and what will be the highest priority. However, we mentioned earlier that it's very difficult, these large ticket items, to include in our everyday general fund budget. We're allowed to have reserve accounts. We try to put money in reserve accounts to maintain and accumulate money for these types of projects. But when there are many projects that need to be completed at one time, as we're facing right now, it's advantageous if the voters will approve a referendum and we go through the process of approving that referendum. We can take advantage of that state aid that's available for the district at what we say is 40%, although as Amy mentioned earlier, the state isn't fully funding that. So it's when there are more than a few projects to complete at one time and on the horizon that are coming down the pike, it's much better to group them together and to try to take advantage of that aid that's out there and available from the state. As far as the question about have there been 2 boilers or chillers failed at one time, not that I'm aware of in the recent past, we have not had. However, everything happens over time and you never know when something is going to break down. So we're just trying to be prepared for that. And then cost analysis has been completed to compare the repairing a lot of these HVAC and facility items over replacement. Alan, maybe you want to speak to that one?
Sorry. We did a facility assessment report for the district a number of years ago, and that's how we started the generation of the list of projects to be included in the referendum. And at that point in time, a true cost analysis of repair versus replace was not done because of the lifespan. Some of the pieces are beyond the life expectancy or the lifespan of them. For example, the roofs have a 20 to 30 year lifespan. We're beyond that. The chillers that we're looking to replace are beyond the lifespan of that piece of equipment. So it's not so much, we're not at that point now of a repair versus replace.
Thank you, Alan. We're just a time check. It's 7:28. We were planning to stop at 7:30, but I just see a few more questions. So we're just going to go a little bit over here to make sure we get all the questions in. Also, Ms. Decker and Mr. Barnett, what preventative maintenance will be completed to ensure the equipment will last the duration of the bond? Maybe the comprehensive maintenance plan.
So we have an excellent staff that takes care of that, our building and ground supervisor, and there is a plan every year. We follow the manufacturer warranties and the guidelines from those manufacturers on the maintenance and inspections of all types of equipment like that. So we are able to stretch the life of them as much as possible, maximize the lifespan of all of any of the large ticket items that are in the district, which is living proof of why Alan just mentioned. Many of them have lasted a very long time, way beyond their life, even their end of life. We've been fortunate that we haven't had to replace anything sooner.
Good point. Ms. Decker, another question, and again, it has been touched on, but maybe you can expand a little bit. Why can't we pay for these through the regular budget? Why would we have to use a bond referendum?
I wish we could pay for them through the regular budget or with the reserve funds that we have, but at the magnitude that we're looking at right now and the number of projects that we're trying to complete and replacement of so many different upgrades of large ticket items, it would be virtually impossible to include even a few of them each year in the budgeting process. There's just not enough money in the general operating budget to include capital projects like that. Smaller ones from time to time, even every year, yes, but overall. And the other thing, if we were to even be able to have the opportunity to include, let's say, 2 projects per year, we would also lose out on that funding from the state, which is really valuable. As we've mentioned earlier, every taxpayer in New Jersey pays into that, and then the SDA or the Department of Education releases those debt service funds back to districts that are able to approve referendums. So it's definitely to the advantage of the district to group them together, go out to referendum if it's approved by the voters, and be able to take advantage of those funds that are already available in the state and that can go out to other districts. Why not bring it back to Sparta?
Okay, thank you. Alan, the plan is built on cost estimates and the work would take several years. What happens when the costs go up?
Okay, so when we propose a referendum and we look at costs, we also project out potential inflation. Okay, there's things that come up along the way that nobody can account for. Can't account for you can't account for the tariffs, you can't account for what COVID did to pricing, and the ESSER funds associated with that. But we do our best to take those kinds of things into account and project out. We're projecting out a cost now for a year and a half out from now, or 2 years out from when we submitted this to the state. Based on what we do every day as education architects, we have current trends and we track those current trends in bidding so that we get real-time data on what school construction costs now, and then we project that out as best we can. Nobody has a crystal ball as to what construction is going to cost in 2 to 3 years. What happens when costs go up? We're asking for a certain dollar amount on this referendum. Should the referendum pass, we go out to bid with this number of projects. That's the total amount that the district is allowed to spend, is what the taxpayers approve. It can't be a penny more than that. So we have to do certain things in the bid documents to address that. And that's through the use of alternates, allowances, et cetera. And that's a strategy that we work with the Board of Ed on as we get closer to bid dates. We have a construction manager that's been brought on board. Epic Management has been brought on board. Part of their job is a check and balance of my work. So as I've proposed the cost estimate to the district to get us to this point, the construction manager will look at that and see if I'm on target with that, and we may need to make adjustments along the way.
Thank you. Why wouldn't we plan to absorb the entire preschool program? I'll take that one. The main reason that the preschool program is expanding right now is because we have preschool expansion funding that comes from the state of New Jersey. And what that preschool expansion funding wants school districts to do is expand into communities and work with community partners. And that's what they help fund for. So the expansion is taking place because we have funding from the state, and the funding from the state says that they would prefer that we expand into community partners and utilize community partners rather than using our own building, which we did when we first started the preschool expansion. And then we got to the point that there were absolutely no more classrooms to use in our district. We started partnering with community partners, and that's what we're going to continue to keep doing based on what the preschool expansion funding, about how the state outlines it. I might be the best to answer this, although I invite anybody to join me. A previous referendum failed a few years ago. What was learned from that process in terms of educating voters, incorporating feedback, et cetera, and how was that considered when designing and proposing this referendum? The referendum that failed a couple of years ago, obviously I was not here for that failed referendum. When we started to explore pursuing a referendum here now in our district, it was the main goal and main objective of the Board of Education and of our partners here and our administration to make sure that we were thorough in our planning of that referendum and what that referendum would look like. But also to make sure that knowing that we cannot pursue or we cannot move forward with this referendum without voters' consent, it was really the plan moving forward is to just make sure that all of our voters are fully informed as to what we are trying to do, why we are trying to do it, and what that will mean to them financially, what that would mean to our students academically. And so we worked together and obviously hired Laura Bishop Communications to help us really to inform the community and make sure that all of our community is going to have an informed vote when they cast that vote on September 16th. I don't know if anybody else has anything to add to that.
I would just say one thing to add to what you shared, Dr. Beck, as a almost lifelong resident of Sparta, is that we're also talking about investment in our youngest learners. That is something that we have not done since these community elementary, what we had started as community-based elementary schools of Alpine and Helen Morgan, Mohawk Avenue School have created for. So in this opportunity, we're not building a brand new school. So that was something we learned from the past referendum, building a brand new middle school, building and essentially a whole new high school. Really, it transformed it. These are much larger projects. We're able to take advantage of the beautiful campus we already have at Alpine, expand and take advantage of that state aid in a way that really drives down the cost compared to some of the past referendums that we've seen in town for brand new schools.
Lauren, I would say beautifully said on that. I was going to touch on that and say something similar by noting that, taking care of our most vulnerable population, I think is something that we see that's a little bit different with this. But just to add to that as well, I think one of the things that was important for all of us was ensuring that this referendum really does touch every building in our district, that it's not single building centric. There's something in every building with this referendum. So no matter what phase your child, your student might be in, there's something to benefit down the road. And again, in my case, for example, both of my boys will never see Alpine School on the inside as students, but they've both expressed, and granted they're 8 and 11, they've both expressed they plan to live in Sparta forever. So who knows, maybe my grandkids will. And I think that's really what we come back to, is making sure that it's a process that's going to touch every building. And again, as we said earlier too, who knows if you don't have children in the district, it's going to help in many ways in terms of our standing, in terms of our value, but also too, it might help pick up games on weekends. You never know. So there's something in it for everyone.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Lauren and Caitlin. I'm sorry. 2 more questions. Mr. Barnett, I'm not sure if you have the answer or have to do a little research. How much would be saved eliminating the high school size gym from Alpine? I guess if you just cut the gym totally from the Alpine addition. Do you have any idea?
I'm trying to get that for you quickly.
All right, you know what? I'll move on to the next one and I'll come back.
Absolutely.
Last one, and this one is for Amy. What is needed for the referendum to pass, Amy? As far as
Sure. So the referendum must be approved by 50% plus 1 vote cast in favor of the bond question. So a referendum can pass or fail by 1 vote. So we cannot stress this enough. Every single vote is extremely important.
Thank you, Amy. Let's go to, okay, there are no further questions in the queue, and we stayed a little later than planned. We appreciate the Sparta community for joining us tonight and for submitting your thoughtful questions about the bond referendum. Alan's going to keep researching that. When we have our next public forum, which is going to be the in-person forum on September 9th, we will be sure to have that. Or you can just email us directly with that question too, and maybe we can turn it around a little quicker for the person that asked that. If anyone could not attend tonight, like I just said, we will also hold an in-person forum and building tour at Alpine School on September 9th at 7 p.m. We hope to see you there. And I'd like to turn things over to board member Lauren Collier for a closing and one last vote reminder.
Thank you so much, Dr. Beck. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Lauren. I'm a proud alumna of Sparta High School. I attended Helen Morgan School and went all the way through from there. And as well as a parent of 5 young Spartans that my husband and I are just so proud to come back and raise in our hometown. Our Sparta education had prepared us and countless others for success. I love following our alumni. It's one of my favorite things as a board member to see where our alumni go and how they impact the world at large. And a lot of it comes from the top quality school system that we have here in Sparta. It's truly a gem. This referendum is long awaited. It stands to benefit all students, staff, and community members. We really can't stress enough that we're a town that prides itself in children and top schools and having this beautiful way of life. And we take a lot of pride in our school campuses, and we know the value of an environment, a high quality learning environment for them. We also understand as fellow taxpayers of what an investment it is in our community that must be carefully weighed. And so to that end, Thank you for attending tonight and listening, and we encourage you to find out more, but please be sure to vote on Tuesday, September 16th, 2025, from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. at your regular polling locations. If you're not aware of your polling location, you can find out that on the referendum website. Vote by mail ballots must also be postmarked by the September 16th date in order to be counted. Parents, if you have an 18-year-old or someone who has recently graduated and going to school, please remind them to register and vote by mail or in person. And all of this information is available on our website, sparta.org/vote. And finally, visit a referendum website for voter forms, as well as to watch a video to summarize our proposal projects. Share it with your neighbors, have conversations. A recording of tonight's presentation will be available on the website as well. It includes a host of frequently asked questions, and we encourage you to continue sending in your questions. All of them are valuable, and if you have that question, it's likely another neighbor has that same question. You can email any and all referendum-related questions to vote@sparta.org. Please join me at the polls on September 16th and make sure that your voice is heard in this special election. And we truly thank you and wish you the very best of your evening and summer. Thank you.